All right, so there's this exciting thing we have when you see maybe movies or you go to a hospital, you see a particular hospitalized patient. There's this machine that you see it's recording the state. We used to monitor the state of the heart, the electrical activities of the heart. You see markings like up, down, up, down, up, down. And when it is now a straight line, we say, the person is dead. Now, that is what we call the ECG, electrocardiogram. And that's what we'll be learning today. Hello and welcome to Effortless Mastery, your go-to destination for simplified medical learning. Now, if you are new to this channel, please ensure you subscribe to this channel, like this video and watch through. Surely you understand all about ECG. Now, today we'll be learning about this fun guy, ECG. But before we rush into these beautiful and amazing things on the board, it's important we get clear our terms. Now, when you hear the word electro, but with cardiography, electro should mention electrical. When you see the word cardio, you should mention the heart. So that's electrical activity of the heart. Graphy here is a technique. So electrocardiography is a technique used to study the electrical activities of the heart. A technique used to study the electrical activity of the heart. Electrocardiograph, which is also called ECG machine, is a machine used to study the electrical activities of the heart. Then the electrocardiogram gong is the recordings or the graphical representation of the electrical activities of the heart. So in case you are asked to probably define any of them, it's quite clear that graphy is a technique, graph is a machine, whereas gram is a graphical representation. Please don't mix it up. Graph is the machine, gram is our representation. So we'd say electrocardiogram is just the graphical representation of the electrical activities of the heart studied from the surface of the body. So usually we place the stuff we used to record it on the surface of the chest, and then the recordings are being picked. And then written, shown on the machine. So the machine is what we are recording. Those recordings themselves are called electrocardiogram. The machine is the machine we use for the recording. All right, so let's go on. Now, from what we've said, we mentioned that this machine, this technique, and these recordings are just electrical recordings of the electrical activities of the heart. So we should go back to what is the electrical activity of the heart. The heart is a skeletal, it has a tissue. The heart muscle is an excitable tissue. That means it should respond to stimulus. So when it's excited, there should be a response. And we see that response with an action potential. So usually when we look at the heart, the cardiac muscle, or specifically I would say the ventricular muscle, the action potential is shown this way with an initial depolarization. So we have a depolarization, initial repolarization, a plateau stage, and a final repolarization. So this is how the heart works. So the muscle would first go up, come down, have a plateau, and then fall down again. But these activities that we see the heart manifest is for each muscle. What it records outside is what is going to be shown on these waves. But let's just quickly look at how the heart conducts impulses. Of course, the heart has a pacemaker tissue. It's a tissue that will just on its own generate impulses. It is on its own, it will generate impulse. So the pacemaker of the heart is called the AC node. So when we study the conductive system of the heart, look at what we see. That from the AC node, impulses are generated. These impulses that are generated within the AC node are carried by, are first spread across to the atria. Of course, the AC node is found in the right atrium, and this is the left atrium. So we look at the picture, right, left. So the impulses are generated in the AC node. Why? It is a pacemaker tissue. So it will stand on its own and just generate impulses. So these impulses that are generated in the AC node are carried by, first spread to the other part of the atrium to excite them. And then once they're excited, of course, they will contract. Then at the same time, these impulses are carried by internodal fibers to another node called AV node. AV node is found between atrium and ventricle. So that means within the right atrium, I have this pacemaker tissue called AC node, and this pacemaker tissue will just generate impulses. It will spread to other part of the atrium. atrial musculature, that is the muscles of the atrium. And after spreading it, it also spread this stimulus down to the AV node. The AV node is, of course, from the word AV. This will be atrioventricular node. So it will tell you it's between atrium and ventricle. This was ACN node. That was sinoatrial node. Now, from the AV node, we have this bundle of fibers that come down called AV bundle. Another set of people call it, another name is called bundle of His. So I'll pick it, and from the, of course, you know what separates the right from the left side of the heart is called a septum. So first and foremost, it will go through this septum. And instead of being one bundle, it divides into two. So we say right bundle branch, left bundle branch. But please, this is called AV bundle or bundle of His. You divide into right and left bundle branches. They get to the apex of the heart and arise again as Purkinje fibers to supply the musculature of the ventricles. So you realize that every single time the heart is excited, the right atrium, sinoatrial node will be the one that generates the impulse, spread it to other atrium, both right and left, spread it to AV node using internodal fibers. From AV node, I have AV bundle, also called bundle of His, bringing out the stimulus. They spread, they now divide into right and left bundles, which gets to the apex of the heart. Please, this was the base of the heart. It gets to the apex of the heart, spreads up again. Please, this is a septum, the separation between the two hearts, two halves of the heart. Now goes up again as Purkinje fibers to supply the ventricular muscle. So you realize from activation, we first stimulate atrium before ventricle. This is very important because your atrium has to contract first in atrial systole of cardiac cycle to push out the remaining blood, 10% of blood, into the ventricles before the ventricles can now contract and send out. So it is very important that these guys contract first. That is, they activated first and then they contract before these other people are activated and then they also contract. So that is that about the conductive system of the heart and how these guys come in. So depolarization first before repolarization, which will mean you are relaxing. So now, it is with this pertinence we know, how does this transform into what we see on the exterior, that is on the heart? What do we see on the external? So when we take this recording, we are trying to study this electrical activity of the heart, but shown on a machine. Usually we have people we call electrographic chest leads. We have people we call leads, electrographic leads. So electrocardiographic leads. So these guys they're just things I use to take the recording. So the particular stuff I place on your body to take the recording are called electrocardiographic leads. Now, we have different kinds of leads. Usually they are divided broadly into two: bipolar limb leads, and then we now have unipolar leads. So those bipolar leads, you go back and look at them. Bipolar leads, there are 3 in number. So we have the one way, so based on which part of the body we are using, our focus is always the right arm, the left arm, and the left leg. So if I attach right and left, if this is where I'm placing my leads and I attach it to the machine, this is called limb lead 1. So this is a bipolar limb lead. So if I'm attaching, so you pick up, if you should see this in movies, where it's as if they're placing something here on the person's chest. So if I place close to the right arm, left arm, what I'm actually using, the recording I'm having is a limb lead 1. But if I place between right arm and then left leg, the recording I'm having is called limb lead 2. But if I'm taking between left leg, arm and left leg, the recording I'm having is called limb lead 3. So generally, like I said, electrocardiographic ECG limb leads are just place the particular things I used to place on the heart. Now, these leads are either bipolar or unipolar. The bipolar ones, the way I do it from the name bipolar, that means I'll have an active electrode on one side, active electrode on the other side. One will be positive, the other one will be negative. So when you see this particular picture, if I place it on right arm, left arm, right arm, left arm, is going to be limb lead 1. If I place it on right arm, right arm, but then left leg. So you place it on the right arm, but then the other one will now be closer to the leg. That will now be limb lead 2. Similarly, if I place on left arm, left leg, it will be limb lead 3. But these are bipolar limb leads. Beyond bipolar limb leads, we also have this other set of limb leads we call unipolar limb leads, whereby they are now subdivided into 2. A case where I could augment a particular limb lead. So that is, I'll have an active electrode in one place, but in other places, they will just be, the other place will just act like indifferent electrodes. So they are not really doing anything. So the main place will be the active electrode. And so we have 3 types of those ones, which are also called, they are called augmented limb leads. Some people call them augmented voltage leads, but they are unipolar. So I have AVR, which will mean I have augmented only to favor the right arm. You can have AVL, I've augmented only to favor the left arm. And then we have augmented one for the left foot. So instead of saying left leg, L would have still conflict with left here. So we use left foot. So the F. Now, so those are the 3 augmented unipolar limb leads, also called augmented voltage. So this is augmented voltage for foot, augmented voltage for left arm, augmented voltage for right arm. We have these other people we now call chest leads, which is V1 to V6. Chest leads. Some people call them precordial leads. So please, I repeat myself. In ECG leads are just electrodes I use and place on the different parts of the body to take recordings of this heart. Now, they are broadly divided into 2. I have bipolar limb leads, which are either limb lead 1, limb lead 2, or limb lead 3, based on where I'm placing my attachments to. So they have different names. Now, number 2 is that I also have unipolar limb leads, which are either augmented voltage limb leads, augmented voltage leads, which is either right, left, and foot, based on who I choose as my active electrode. The other person will be indifferent. So if I choose you as active, every other place will be indifferent. I choose you as active, every other place will be indifferent. So the other place will be indifferent. R will be the active electrode, left arm will be the active electrode, and then left foot will be the active electrode. Then beyond that, having unipolar limb leads, I also call chest leads. So these ones are just, you place the stuff, that's all the limbs will be indifferent. That's both right arm, left leg, all of them will be indifferent. So I will now place these chest cords on different parts of the heart. So there's a place here, V1, which is foot intercostal space, right sternal margin. V2, foot intercostal space, but then this time around left sternal margin. V3 is between V2 and V4. And where is V4? V4 is feet intercostal margin. Feet intercostal space. Feet intercostal space. So you now realize, so you keep going on. So just different place, different names. So that will be mid clavicular line. You move to number 5, still feet. Number 6, still feet. So you see it in different places. So, but that's just the basic idea, that the leads are either bipolar or unipolar. There are 3 bipolars called limb leads, 1, 2, 3. Then the unipolar is either augmented or chest. So if it is augmented, there are 3 in number. If it is chest, there are 6 in number. All right, so let's go to the hallmark of this class, which is the recordings, the appearance of that recordings on the heart, the appearance of the recordings on the machine, the electrical activity on the machine, and what we call it. Now, if you observe from this picture, this graph, the graph here is showing the waves, the complex, the segments, and the intervals of the ECG. Usually this recording is best seen, I think this is best seen with limb lead 2. So this is just more like limb lead 2 figure, but this is what we run with for ease of understanding. We have the P wave, we have the Q wave, the R wave, the S wave, the T wave. So this is one segment. I come again, you see P, you see Q, you see R, you see S, you see a T. So observe some things nice about this diagram. The P is tall, but not as tall as T. So T is taller and broader than P. Why? Because when I draw this graph, this is amplitude height, this is duration. So P will be a short amplitude of around 0.1 to 0.12 millivolts. Whereas when I go to T, T is as high as 0.3. So That shows that T should be higher than P. So P should be shorter and then not as broad because the duration here is short, 0.1 seconds, but here is longer. So that is that. Likewise, you observe that Q is a negative wave. These ones were positive. This is a negative wave. S is also negative, but S is actually having a higher amplitude, so it will be deeper than the Q. Whereas R is the one with the highest amplitude. It goes as high, very high, as high as 1 millivolts. So it goes very high. Then T, we are done with that. Of course, so then other things we see here, the complex QRS is a complex, we call QRS complex. ST is the segment between the end of S and the beginning of T. What else do we see here? PR interval is between the start of P and the start of Q. It would have been called PQ interval, but some people just use PR. PR is better used because we don't quite see Q a lot, so we can just use it with the marking of the R. Then also the distance between one R to another R is called RR interval. So let's quickly just go through these segments, these waves very quickly. So I start with the P wave. Like we see, the P wave is a positive wave. It's a positive wave, of course, because it is going up. Beyond being a positive wave, this wave is due to, or it signifies, atrial depolarization. So this is a period of whereby the atrium is depolarizing. Atrial depolarization. So in this period, the atrium is activated and then it usually precedes contraction of atrial musculature. So you observe something about P wave, the first wave. So like I said, after generating the impulse here, first these people should be activated. So that deactivation is called atrial depolarization, and it is what manifests as P wave. Short, an amplitude of 0.1 to 0.12 millivolts. Yeah, that's the amplitude. Duration about 0.1 seconds. That's all about P wave. See, it is due to what? It is caused by atrial depolarization. Or you hear some books say depolarization of atrial musculature. Now, after P wave, we have the Q wave, QRS interval. Sorry, QRS complex as a whole signifies ventricular depolarization, but they are divided into different instances, which I will show you shortly. So QRS complex signifies ventricular what? Depolarization. Now, we are told that after the atrium has done depolarization, the repolarization is overlapped. So the ventricles will do too much that we don't even observe that the atrium should repolarize. It does not mean there is no repolarization, please take note. So here, QRS interval, of course, it is Q. Q is what? A negative wave. And Q is due to, is something I would like you to see. Q is due to depolarization of, please observe, depolarization of the base of ventricular septum, interventricular septum. So this is the septum. So after I'm done generating the impulse, I'll depolarize the atrium. That's P wave. I now depolarize the base. Remember, this is the base of the heart. The base. The base is always negative. So when I repolarize the base of the interventricular septum, that is called Q wave. Depolarization of the base of interventricular septum. Similarly, when I get to the apex and I depolarize the apex, that is called R wave. So when you depolarize the apex of interventricular septum and at the same time, you also depolarize the apex of the ventricles, that's the ventricular muscle. So this period where I am depolarizing the apex of IV, that's interventricular septum, I'm also depolarizing the apex of the ventricular muscle. That is what manifests as R wave. Then the S wave is simple. The S wave is just due to depolarization of the base of the ventricular muscle. So I need you to see something. You need to see something. That first, it flows first. I depolarize, I activate the atrium, P wave. Activate the base. Base is always negative. Activate the base of the septum. That's called Q wave. Activate the apex of both the septum and the muscle. That's called R wave. I now come back to activate the base of the muscle. That's what S. So this is negative, negative, but the middle one is what? Positive. Why is the middle one positive? Because it is doing the base. Why is the other two negative? Because, sorry, it's doing the apex. The other two are with the base. So remember, base is what? Negative, apex is what? Positive. Base is negative, apex is positive. All right, so that is that for that. So now we now go to T wave. T wave is just a period of repolarization of the ventricles. Repolarization of the ventricles. Now, what else should be noted? So from what we've seen, first, when impulses are generated here, I spread it P wave. That's what the heart will see on the outside. Oh, you spread the ventricles. When you are at the septum, what do I see? Q. When it goes to the apex of the septum and this muscle part here, what is it? R. When it goes back to the base, burden of the muscle, what is it? Yeah, you got it right. It is called S. Then I now come back to repolarization. That repolarization is called the T wave. The T wave. All right, so that is that for that. Next thing is the intervals. The intervals we have. We have three major intervals here. Between P, the onset of P, and the onset of QRS. And that's called PR interval. What does it signify? It will involve the period where the atrium is being stimulated. So that is atrial depolarization, and also the period whereby these stimulus are now carried to ventricles. Observe something. P wave, atrial depolarization. QRS, ventricular depolarization. So these intervals, which will be from beginning of, in fact, everything that's happening in the ventricles. Then RR interval is what we use to know the heart rate. So it's the duration between the highest peak R in one wave with the next R in, that's with the R in the next successive wave. So it gives us an information. It's usually around 0.8 seconds, which coincides with the length of a cardiac cycle. So usually if it's prolonged, that means heart rate is slow. So you are taking time to do what you should do. But if it's shortened, that means the heart rate is faster. So this covers the waves, the segments. So the segments, we have ST segment here notably, and it covers the intervals of the ECG. So the waves, the segments, the intervals, and the complex of the ECG machine. So this is all to ECG. So please, we'll be having a question and answer session. It will be a live video. So ensure the notification will be made available on when that will happen. You are free to ask questions, and then I will give you answers for every single question concerning this topic. Thank you very much for joining us. Do well to like this video. Do well to share this video to as many people as possible. Ensure a lot of people get to see what we are doing here, and then do well to subscribe to this channel.